Hello, this is Bob Carswell, Fáilte agus a Chléir Seo. Welcome to this programme, which is about the varied and changing face of music making in the Isle of Man today. And I'll be talking to some of the musicians who are making modern Manx music. Breesha Maddrell, you're the Manx Music Development Officer for the Manx Heritage Foundation. For that project, how is Manx music defined?
Very, very loosely. We like to define it in lots of different ways, really. It's anything that's connected with the Isle of Man, so what people are creating now. So you would even class some of the band scene, people writing their own material, as being Manx music. But the main work that we do focuses on traditional music, on classical music that has taken some of that traditional music as inspiration, on church music that's related to the Isle of Man, and also on things like brass band traditions, which are very, very strong over here. So they require less support from us because it's such a strong tradition. So we spend most of our time working with traditional music, with dance music in particular, with songs, and also helping to support church music.
Apart from development work with the Heritage Foundation, you're also a practising musician. How would you characterise the different styles of the various groups that you play with?
Well, I think a band like Skeeal was really driven by the guitar a lot of the time. And Paul, although he has a classical background and studied music at university and a lot of early music as well, he'd also played a lot of rock music. And so he had different rhythms and different approaches to the tunes. And it was really, really good fun and really, really quick process to actually come up with arrangements with Skeeal. And we were trying to always make the next arrangement different to the last one. And it really helped having two very contrasting singers, because Phil Gaughan and Sophia Dale both have very different styles. They're both great singers, but in very different ways. So as a band, we would have to shift our arrangements to accommodate their styles. And occasionally we would let them sing together, but not very often, because it was quite difficult, I think. Or we couldn't always rely that the two of them would be on the island at the same time. And the two flute parts became very important, because Simone wanted to have two flutes. She didn't want to have a flute and a fiddle and be like nearly every other band, because there seems to be one of each instrument. And she was incredibly quick at creating harmonies and writing quirky tunes that we could use. Yeah, it was good fun.
Which would you say was the closest to Manx traditional music?
Well, that's a really, really difficult question, because in a weird way, my answer would be Moot, because I think that Caarjyn Cooidjagh sings in a very, what I would say is a traditional way, because she makes the songs her own, totally. So it's not just relying on what's left to you on the page, it's actually making that a very personal rendition of a song, and I think that that's something that's at the heart of the tradition. So So even though it's quite electronic music and it's mixed with different styles and different genres, in one way, to me, it's the closest, in a strange way.
And what about your own contribution to Moot?
I play the flute and I occasionally sing, and that's quite nice to me because my background, I was trained classically and I also played traditional music when I was at school. So I get to play my silver flute in that, so I get to play in more sharps and flats than I normally do when I play my wooden flute or my whistle. So I have a different style of playing, and we borrow a lot from jazz and blues, and then the bass lines and things we borrow from dub and all manner of music. Sheear and Skeeal probably have been more traditional bands. I suppose Sheear, in one way, we were much more traditional even than Skeeal, and that was with Katie Lawrence, Chloe Woolley and Chintzia Yates. And we just got together. We had a piano though, so I mean that sort of pulls it in another direction. But we were playing a lot of tunes and doing a mixture of traditional tunes and original tunes. We also mixed in tunes from Ireland and Scotland as well, and even, I think, Sweden. Katie had some really nice tunes. And that's also important, that you don't become too rigid. And we arranged some songs in Manx as well for 3 voices, which was nice to do, having instruments and voices going on at the same time. And I think the high point of that was going to Louisiana to perform in a Celtic Nations festival. Good fun.
You mentioned studying music at school. What is your musical background?
Well, when I was about, I suppose, 6 or 7, I started playing the recorder at school, as you quite often do. We always had a piano in the house, so that was the next instrument. And I used to go for lessons with Miss Slingsby up the How, who was a very old lady who used to sit there with a little drop of water on her nose when it got too cold and the 1 bar of the electric heater was on. And she was great because she was really concentrated on music and didn't concentrate on exams. So I worked through exam grade music without having to have that pressure, and got a lot of musicality out of things that way. And then I started learning the violin at school, actually, with Bernard Osborne. But my parents were not enamoured with the instrument, shall we say, because my brother was learning the double bass at the same time, and that sounded much better. So then I wanted to learn the clarinet. And then one of my friends started learning straight away. I thought, God, I can't do that. And that's how I ended up with the flute. And then I was very pleased that I ended up with the flute because I really enjoyed it as an instrument. So I started that, I think, at top primary school and then carried on. And then just had very good teachers, which really, really helped. Played with the Manx Youth Orchestra and was the section leader and the orchestra librarian and all manner of things like that. And then went to university and studied music there.
The Manx Youth Orchestra has been quite a hotbed because many of the people who are playing in the island these days have come through the orchestra. It's been a very positive effect on Manx music in general.
It really, really has, and I think it's something that's incredibly important, especially to a small island community where there isn't a huge amount to do unless you have all of these orchestras and sports sort of opportunities. And so your own son Gilno was in the orchestra, people like Cinzia were playing clarinet with him, David Kilgallen and Katie Lawrence have come through, Chloe Woolley, everybody really that you know, or most of them, Adam Rhodes. Tons of people have come through the orchestra, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realise, that traditional musicians are quite often classically trained as well, and they can play different sorts of music all at the same time.
Singing is perhaps something that's not very well represented in many ways in the island since the revival in the mid-70s, but Caarjyn Cooidjagh are doing a lot in that respect.
That's right. I was really lucky when I came back from university that I was allowed to join the choir, and that's really how I met Skeeal Clegg and Robert Kane. So that's how Moot happened, because we all joined the choir at the same time. I think I was studying with Aileen at the Centre for Manx Studies, and we were talking about music, so she said, she'd like to join Caarjyn Cooidjagh as well. And what I liked about them is that they had a really fresh sound, that you had a lot of singers in there who were solo singers as well, and yet they came together and created a great sound. And Annie is just so clever, Annie Chiswick, with her arrangements.